Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. This is going to be part 2 of my January to February recap of kind of all the things that I watched and read and stuff. The last video is where I discussed the books that I read and the TV that I watched in January and February. And this video is going to be on movies that I watched and albums that I listened to and a couple other random things that didn't really fit into those categories. But this discussion is going to be spoiler free, so you won't have to worry about skipping around or anything. And I just want to put this disclaimer at the beginning as usual that I just want to remind everyone that, I think it's great that, these artists put all this work into, this art that they created. I definitely appreciate that. And I'm not trying to discredit it at all, but, I think it's important for us to be able to, critique it and just have discussions around it. So, yeah, I just want to remind everyone to, keep it respectful in the comments. And also, the video is a cross stitch representing one of the things that I watched or listened to this month. And for this video, this is to represent Hayley Williams' album Flowers for Vases, which is, a pretty literal interpretation of the album name. But I'll get into more details at the end if you care about the cross stitch. But so, with all of that said, I'll move on to the recap. And first up is movies. And the first movie that I watched this year was Army of Darkness, which stars Bruce Campbell, and it was released in 1993 in theaters. And it's it's a dark fantasy comedy horror movie, and it's the third film in the Evil Dead series. So it's just more fighting zombie type. I mean, that's basically what they do in all the movies. So, but the one that's different, the thing that makes this one different is that it's set in the Middle Ages. And I picked this up to just continue on and finish the trilogy. But I just heard that they're making a fourth Evil Dead, so, it's not going to be a trilogy anymore. But anyways, back to Army of Darkness. I thought that this was probably the best one in the trilogy, I think, actually. And which I think is, it seems to be, people seem to like the second one the best. And I've already talked about how I don't agree with that at all. I don't understand that. But this one, I think it, and also I wanted to say that it seems like people forget that this one even exists. Like when people talk about the series, they kind of just talk about Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. But I actually think this one was the best because I think it kind of finally knows what it wants to be. Because it kind of progresses from like a more traditional horror movie with the first one, and then the second one people like a lot more because it gets more comedic and slapstick. And then it kind of starts with this whole action hero thing, and then the third one, this one, I feel like it really embraces the action hero trope and really leans into the comedy element even more than the second one does. So I also think this one isn't as repetitive as the other two. That's one of the reasons why I didn't like this. I mean, the first one is kind of a basic zombie movie. It might have been one of the first, I don't know, so maybe it wasn't repetitive at the time. But and then especially the second one, which is pretty much just a remake of the first one. The second one's really repetitive. But so for Army of Darkness, I thought that this one had some actually pretty funny moments. And I also just really liked Bruce Campbell in this one. I liked how he just went like all out, and he's a really good action hero guy. So I gave this one a 6 out of 10. And the next movie I watched was Watchmen. This has an all-star cast. I'm not sure how you say it. Malin Ackerman, Carla Gugino. There's so many names here I can't pronounce. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Patrick Wilson, and it was directed by Zack Snyder. And it was released in 2009 in theaters. And it's just it's another superhero movie, but it's based on a graphic novel. And I picked it up because I really liked the HBO show version that came out a few years ago, and I've been like curious of what the differences are between the two versions. And I also just like Jeffrey Dean Morgan, so I was excited to see him in this movie. And I didn't like it very much. I really wanted to like it. I think it has some cool like aesthetic things going on, and I think it has a cool concept and cool characters, but I don't think it was executed very well at all. I thought the movie was really confusing. It was way too long, and it didn't really feel like there was a coherent story or narrative happening. It was all kind of just a bunch of random scenes thrown together, and I didn't think there was enough action sequences for a superhero movie. And I don't even like action movies really, but even I was like, there's not enough action here. And I don't know, in these kinds of ensemble superhero movies, my favorite part is learning about each character and their backstories and their powers and all that kind of thing. But I feel like we didn't really get to know the characters in Watchmen very well at all. So yeah, I wouldn't really recommend it. I would recommend people to watch the show instead. And I gave this a 3 out of 10. So next up is House of a Thousand Corpses. It has Rainn Wilson in it, and it's directed by Rob Zombie. It was released in 2003, and it's classified as a black comedy, but I don't really see that at all. Well, it's classified as black comedy slash horror. I would say it's definitely in the horror genre. I wouldn't call it a black comedy at all. But this is the first movie in the Firefly series, and it's about a group of friends that are captured by a crazy family. That's what I'll say. And I decided to watch this because I've always heard a lot about it. It's a cult classic, and it was just available to stream one day, and I just went for it. And I thought it was okay. It was pretty short, so that always helps. I mean, one thing was I didn't think it was too scary, other than like I don't know what you would call them, vignettes maybe. There's always like, well, some in certain horror movies they throw in these little flashes of things or little montages of scary visuals, and those always freak me out. So the bits of that were in this movie were scary, but other than that, there wasn't really too much scare in there for me. And I didn't think that there were iconic characters either on the victim side or on the killer side. And I didn't think there was really like memorable deaths or memorable sets for the most part. And I'll get into that a little more later. But there also just didn't seem to be very much going on other than it being about like a crazy family. Like there wasn't really much like motivation or whatever behind it, and maybe they get into that more in the sequels, I don't know. But for this one, it was kind of just crazy people like killing people. And I mean, after watching it, I was really like, I don't get why this is a cult classic at all. Like, it wasn't scary, it wasn't memorable, and for the most part, I do stick to that opinion, but I think there are a few memorable things that set it apart a little bit. Like I think the fried chicken attraction gas station thing in the beginning is kind of iconic, and this and the clown guy. And I also really liked the end tunnels and like the doctor guy. I thought those were really cool. But I mean, other than that, like the main family wasn't very memorable to me. And as I said, the victims weren't either. And I also just wanted to mention or bring up that I think it was a lot less scary because Rainn Wilson was in it, which I'm sure Rob Zombie probably hates that Rain like messed up his movie by like going and getting famous after it. And then he got famous as like this funny nerdy guy that you don't take seriously, but it was just comforting for me watching the movie knowing that Rain was there because like there's just to me there's something that makes a horror movie creepier when it's like a bunch of unknown actors, and it kind of keeps me in this mindset of like, is this actually real? Did some maybe something actually happen to them? And so for this, when I know Rainn Wilson and I see him, it definitely it like takes me out of the movie because I see him there and I'm like, okay, this is definitely fake. He's gonna be fine after this. So for the most part, him being there just kind of like pulled me out of it to realize that it wasn't real. But there was one moment where he like made this total Dwight face in what was supposed to be like a really serious, scary scene, and I just started like cracking up. So, I mean, other than that one part, it was pretty minor, I guess, his involvement throwing me out of it. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that. But I mean, I'm definitely going to be continuing on with this series. I'm definitely interested in watching the second one. I've heard that that one's a lot better, so I'm definitely willing to give that a try. So I gave this one a 5 out of 10. And next on the list is After We Collided. And this has a lot of, I mean, I just bring up the actors that I that I like or that I care about. And I don't really know the main actors from anything, but this one had a lot of side actors that I really liked. And it has Dylan Sprouse in it. It has Carolyn from The Vampire Diaries and Frank from How to Get Away with Murder. They're all complete unimportant side characters, but I liked seeing them in this movie, so I'm gonna bring it up. But this was released in 2020 in whatever theaters were open due to COVID, and it's a romantic drama movie, and it's based on a book. It's the second film in the series, and I mean it's just a basic romance movie about a college couple, and he's a troubled boy with a British accent. And I thought this one was worse than the first one. There was like literally no plot at all. Nothing made sense. You could tell that they just like took kind of a bunch of separate scattered bullets from the book and just like glued them all together without like making any transitions or keeping, eliminating things that don't really matter overall. And yeah, and I also just don't really like the main character. I think he's pretty annoying. The character, not the actor. Um, the character is just he's too like moody for my taste. I can't really root for him. I do have to say there were a few parts in there that were kind of funny though. But yeah, so I gave that one a 4 out of 10. And next was The Platform, which was released in 2020 on Netflix. It's a Spanish film horror movie it's about this kind of jail where all the people live on like a different floor, and every 30 days they're switched around to different floors, and there's this platform that brings food through all the rooms, starting at the top. So the food goes from the top to the bottom, and the people at the top get like the best pick of food and they get to eat as much as they want. And then the people at the bottom are left with, whatever's left. And this has just been on my queue for a while. Once I heard about, a summary of this, and ever since then I was pretty interested in it. And so it's just been on my queue for a while, and I finally got around to it. And I really liked it. I just think the concept is super interesting to see like how people would react to that type of situation. And I I just really appreciated that. I think it stands up as a interesting movie just like on the surface, and then once you delve into some of the themes and messages, there's definitely a lot of subtext, I guess you would say, about themes and messages about like class and greed. And in the end, I don't think it was too graphic or scary, but it was like suspenseful. It did like keep me on edge. And yeah, I just really liked this one. So I gave this one an 8 out of 10. And then I watched Malcolm and Marie, which stars Zendaya and John David Washington, and it's directed by Sam Levinson, who also, works on Euphoria. And this was released February 5th of this year, 2021, on Netflix. And it's a romantic drama that kind of follows this couple after attending the John David Washington's character after his movie premiere. And I mean, I decided to watch it just because it seemed like it was going to be one of the big Netflix releases of the year. And there's just, there's not many new movies coming out these days. And I like Zendaya. So, that's why I picked it up. And I thought it was okay. It was a little disappointing. I thought it was really pretty visually, and it had good music. And probably the best part was the performances. The performances were great from both of them. They both had to go through so much emotion from good to bad. And that part was just phenomenal. But I think the movie goes a bit long. Quite a bit long, that I was definitely pretty bored after a while. But, and I always appreciate when it's like, this movie is literally just those two actors in one house, like over one night. So, I always appreciate when a movie is able to, like, that's not a normal movie. And I feel like it kind of takes more work for us to be interested in something that's, it's kind of the same set, the same two people. So, I do appreciate that. For the most part, until the last like half an hour or 45 minutes or whatever, I was pretty interested. So I do have to appreciate that. But, even another criticism, even though I do think that they performed really well, the actors, something about the characters didn't really like connect with me. I didn't really feel emotionally connected to them. I don't think maybe it was that they didn't feel like real people. They were just kind of like this, abstract film characters that represent, whatever symbol or theme that they're trying to get across. I don't know, but it could also just have been that you get kind of exhausted through the movie with everything that happens, just back and forth of everything that happens. Maybe I just got tired of dealing with it. I'm not really sure, but I gave this a 5 out of 10. And next is Cinderella. This is the 1997 version. This has an all-star cast in it. Brandy, Whitney Houston, Whoopi Goldberg, Jason Alexander, Bernadette Peters, Victor Garber. And as I said, this was released in 1997 as a TV movie on some Disney Channel, ABC maybe, I don't know. But it's a musical. It's like a remake of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. And I just decided to watch it right after it was released to Disney Plus, and I just wanted to support its release. And it's I can keep rewatching this movie. I forgot to mention this is a rewatch for me. I've already seen it before, but I just wanted to support its release, so it got good streaming numbers, and I can watch it over and over again. So I don't mind, just putting it on whenever. And yeah, I just love it so much. And I'm thinking of doing a video specifically on this because I love it so much. So I probably don't want to get into it too much here. And also there's a quote that I want to do for it, so I'm saving that. That's why the cross stitch isn't relating to Cinderella, because I might want to do a separate video on that. But I think what makes this movie so great is the cast. The cast is like literal perfection. And it's like literally like every single one of like the main characters are so great. And I'm kind of a big Whitney Houston fan, so it's kind of a good memory to have of her. And the songs are scattered perfectly throughout, so there's no boring moments along the way, and all the songs are bops, and the dance numbers are really good. And I know there's some bits of it that are cheesy, but I mean, it's what do you expect? It's like a 90s movie. It's a TV movie from the 90s. So, I mean, obviously it's going to be a little cheesy, but I don't think that takes away from the heart of it and like the amazing performances and the great material underneath it all. So, I mean, obviously this has a lot of rewatch ability potential for me. I could watch this like every day and not get tired of it. So I give this a 10 out of 10. But I mean, obviously it's kind of biased since it's a rewatch. So I mean, I obviously like it. Um so anyways, next is To All the Boys, Always and Forever. And this has Lana Condor and Noah Centineo. Centineo. I don't know how you say that. And it also has some good side character actors also with I sound so dumb. I sound so dumb. I don't know how to say any of these names, but I know them. Like I know these actors so well. Like I follow them on Instagram, or I've seen them in multiple roles and I love them in all of them, but like I might not have seen like an interview with them saying their own name. So I don't know how to say it. But anyways, this movie has some good side characters in it also with Janelle Janelle Parrish, and Ross Butler and John Corbett, and it was released February 12th, 2021 on Netflix. And this is a teen romantic comedy. It's the third movie in the To All the Boys film series that's based on the book series, and it's just like a high school rom-com. And this one specifically, they're kind of in their senior year and they're preparing to go off to college and applying to college and all that stuff. So, I mean, I picked this up to just continue on with the series, and I thought it was okay. I'm pretty neutral on it. I think it was a lot better than the second one. The second one was really bad. This one was better, but I don't think it was as good as the first one. I think the second one might have just ruined my perception of the series. Like, I think that one, I'm kind of like, I watched that one and I was kind of like, I'm done. Like, this is irredeemable kind of thing. So I think the second one just kind of made it hard for me to care about it anymore. And I mean, in this movie in particular, I think that the main couple, they're too lovey-dovey, innocent and like naive kind of thing for my personal taste. But I mean, I do think it was a cute ending for the series. So I gave this a 5 out of 10. The next movie I watched was Okja, which has Tilda Swinton, Paul Dano, Stephen Ewan. Again, I don't know how to say his name, but I love him. Stephen Ewan, Lily Collins, Jake Gyllenhaal, and it's directed by Bong Joon-ho. This was released in 2017 on Netflix, and it's an action adventure film that's about this company who makes these genetically modified super pigs, and they hire farmers to raise the pigs as this advertising contest kind of thing. And this movie is about this farmer girl's relationship with her pig. And I mean, I decided to watch this because it's critically acclaimed. I've heard so much about it. I've been wanting to watch it for a while. And then, especially since I watched Parasite last year, which has the same director, I've especially really been wanting to watch it. And I liked this movie. I thought it was, really interesting the whole time. There were good action sequences. I thought it had a really good cast. Especially, I just really loved Tilda Swinton and Stephen Ewan in this. And I I do want to say that I didn't like Jake Gyllenhaal in this at all. Um, his character was I don't know, it was just so off. I don't really blame him though. I think there was probably some problem with like the maybe I can't ever tell what it is. The directing, the writing, the editing, something about it just felt off. Like he felt completely over the top compared to the rest of the characters. And um anyways, back to my the pros of why I liked this movie. I thought it was an interesting movie on its own, but I also appreciate that it has, important messages that it's trying to get across. And I just thought the relationship between the girl and her pig was super cute. So I gave this a 7 out of 10. And next is The Map of Tiny Perfect Things. And this has Catherine Newton in it. And it was released February 12th, 2021 on Amazon Prime. And this is like a sci fi romantic comedy drama about these teens who are stuck in a time loop. And I just decided to watch it because it's a new movie. It looked like a good, what I call pretentious teen romance movie. And I just like Catherine Newton. So all of those things together, decided to watch it. And I really didn't like this movie. It felt like the longest hour and a half of my life. I'm really sorry to who, if anyone is listening to this that was involved. I'm sorry, but I didn't like it. The characters didn't feel like characters, or they didn't feel like people really. So I didn't care about them or their relationship, and I felt like this movie was trying like way too hard to be one of the pretentious teen romances that I like, something like The Fault in Our Stars or Perks of Being a Wallflower. Like I was trying way too hard to be one of those movies without actually having any of like the deep substance that gives those movies the feeling of importance that they have. And I mean, I did like in the end what Catherine Newton's character is going through, and I like seeing how she learns to move on and move forward. And I think there was a good message there, but I think the movie just took way too long to get into all that. So, I mean, overall, I thought this was a very forgettable movie for me, and I gave this a 3 out of 10. And the next movie is I Care a Lot, which has Rosamund Pike and Peter Dinklage in it. And this was released February 19th, 2021 on Netflix. And this is a comedy thriller about this movie who's like a con artist that robs old people by becoming their legal guardian. And I'm always looking for new movies to watch, and I like Rosamund Pike and Peter Dinklage, so decided to watch this one. And I thought it was an interesting concept, And I liked the battle between Rosamund Pike's character and Peter Dinklage's character. And I liked the twist that it kind of took us through, and I thought it had funny moments. But something about it, it just wasn't quite as good as I expected it to be. But I mean, overall, I still thought it was pretty good. So I gave this a 7 out of 10. And then I watched The United States versus Billie Holiday, which has Andra Day, Trevante Rose, Natasha Lyonne, Garrett Hedlund, Leslie Jordan. And this was released February 26th, 2021 on Hulu. And this is a biopic about the singer Billie Holiday and I guess her battle with the government. And this was just a big release. I had heard a little bit of hype around it, so decided to watch it. And I did not like this one at all. It was really bad, which I feel bad about because I was really looking forward to it and I really wanted to like it, but it was so bad. I'm sorry. I think my biggest problem with this one is that it didn't really portray Billie Holiday as like a real person. She was more portrayed as just this drug addict person. Like that's pretty much the first thing you see of her is her like shooting up. And it felt like they kind of ran us through like the bullet points of her life, and it just felt like a montage of like some music video clips and then scattered things of random scenes of stuff that happened to her, and it doesn't really let you get to know her as a person first. She's just kind of this empty shell of a character that has, you know, these issues, but you don't really get to, I mean, eventually they try to tell you a little bit of why, but I mean, by that point, do you really care at all, I guess? I don't know. And the structure of it didn't really make sense either because it kind of starts out with her being interviewed by Leslie Jordan, but then they only like flash forward to that a few times. It's so weird. It was completely pointless. And then Natasha Lyonne's character was completely pointless. There's so many side characters that don't matter at all. And there's so many that it gets confusing as to who's who and why they're here because they're not important. And yeah, I thought the conflict between her and like the government over her song and then them trying to kind of frame her for drugs, I thought that was super interesting, but somehow the movie told this story in a completely boring way. And yeah. And I'm not really familiar with Billie Holiday or her music, so I can't really speak to whether Andra Day did a good impression of her, but from what I know, Andra Day is primarily a singer. So, I mean, I thought she did a great job here acting wise. I wouldn't be able to tell that this was, you know, one of her first acting roles. So, you know, great job from her. But yeah, overall I didn't like this. So, I gave this a 3 out of 10. And the last movie that I watched this month, or in February, was Billie Eilish, The World's a Little Blurry. So, you know, this weekend I watched 2 Billie movies, but so this was released on February 26th on Apple TV Plus, and it's a documentary of Billie Eilish's life. And it goes through like her making her first album to kind of the present, but you know, before COVID started happening. And it has, you know, behind the scenes footage and concert footage. And I mean, I I've been so excited for this movie since I heard about it, since it was announced. And I just love Billie so much. I'm such a big fan of her. So, you know, obviously I'm going to watch this movie. And I would have done a cross stitch on this, but I've already done one of her recently. So, I mean, go check out my TikTok if you want to see my Billie embroidery piece that I did recently. But I mean, as a Billie fan, it's just obviously great to have as much access as possible to this behind the scenes footage and interviews and to get to know her better as a person. And I mean, I'm just a big like musical person, so I'm just like I'm a sucker for these kind of documentaries where they like they put like interviews and then songs and performances and put them like back and forth. It's just so good. I love it. And I mean, I think even for people who aren't Billie fans, I think would also appreciate this movie. I think it gives a good insight into who she is, and I think it shows how hard of a worker she is and how integral her and Phineas are to their work and how creative and talented they both are. I do think it ran a little bit long, but I mean, I'm personally fine with it because I just want to see as much footage of her as possible. But I mean, I can acknowledge that for people that aren't fans, it can maybe be a little bit long. But I also just think it's really cool that this documentary it covers like a really interesting part of her life where she's going from like semi-famous to like full-blown Grammy-winning superstar. So it's a really rewarding journey to see how far she's come. So I gave this a 9 out of 10. So that's it for movies. Now I'm going to move on to albums. And first up was Black Pumas Deluxe by Black Pumas, and it was released in 2020, and this is kind of a psychedelic soul album. And I decided to listen to this because I'm trying to listen to all of the albums that are nominated for Album of the Year at the Grammys. And I really liked this album. I love anything that's modern and new, but it's like paying homage or, playing with these kind of retro throwback styles, which is what this is. And I mean, I just really love the originality of, taking that kind of old music and making new that old style and making new music out of it. And I just think they have a really cool sound. Um, there weren't too many individual songs that really stood out to me, but as a whole, I really liked the album. And I do want to say that the deluxe, the deluxe version is the one that's nominated for the Grammy, so that's the one I'm listening to. And I do have to say that I think the deluxe version runs pretty long, like really long. I would much prefer the standard version because the deluxe version just has a bunch of live versions that sound, I mean, they sound pretty similar to me. And I also don't really care about cover songs either. So, um, I mean, individual song wise, I don't think I'm going to be listening to any specific songs. Like, I'm not going to be adding any to my playlist, but I definitely will pick up the album to listen to like the whole thing again. And so I gave that one a 7 out of 10. And the next album that I listened to was Won't You Take Me With You by Daniel Knox. And this was released January 15th, 2021. And I honestly have no idea what genre this would be. And it's just hard for me to tell when it's not like listed on Wikipedia. It's hard for me to classify genres on my own. Um, I I see jazz listed a few times on Wikipedia, but I wouldn't classify this as jazz really. So I would say probably more folk or something like that. So, I mean, if anyone knows what genre this would be, let me know. But I mean, I decided in January and maybe February, I feel like there aren't very many new albums to choose from big artists. So I had to go with something, that I didn't really know of before. And this was getting good reviews, and I just decided to pick it up. And I didn't like this album. Um, this was one of the random ones that I picked, but I picked it off of, I mean, the cover looked okay, and then it was listed as singer songwriter as like, I guess their kind of genre, but um, it wasn't really what I was expecting from singer songwriter. I was expecting it to be more like acoustic, guy with his guitar, I thought it was okay, but there weren't any songs that really stood out to me. I wasn't really a fan of the overall sound of this album. There were pretty much just one song that was kind of actually painful for me to listen to, which was it was called Look at Me, which just had this weird screeching in it, which really bugs me. I don't know why people do that. I don't think it adds anything like artistically. It's not fun to listen to. So, yeah, I mean other than that one song, it was mostly just that it was boring, I guess. Yeah, I'm definitely not going to listen to this again, this album, either as a whole or with each individual song, and I would give this a 3 out of 10. Next is Hollywood's Bleeding by Post Malone, this was released in 2019. This is like a hip hop pop kind of album, and I picked this one up also for the Grammys Album of the Year nominations. I wanted to listen to all of the nominees in that category. And for this one, I thought it was okay. It was good. I just didn't think there was anything special about it, really. There was a couple songs that were pretty catchy for me. I really liked Circles and Allergic and Sunflower. Those were my favorites. But the rest of the songs they were basically the same for me. I mean, I was able to recognize them and like sing along with them, but they're just not memorable when I like look back on it and try to pick out specific songs. I mean, other than, the three that I mentioned. But also, I mean, there weren't any songs that really bugged me, so that is a good thing also. And I just have to say that I'm not the biggest fan of his voice. It was a little annoying. I'm sorry. I'm not a fan of like the fast vibrato and like the heavy auto tune. Yeah, I'm sorry. He seems like a really nice guy, but his voice it's just not my thing. I mean, I would probably go back and listen to this again in its entirety, but I mean, I would be more inclined to pick off my favorites and add them to my playlists. So I gave this a 6 out of 10. Next is Nobody Is Listening. This is by Zayn, and this was released January 15th, 2021. This is a pop R&B album, and I'm an old One Direction fan, so I just try to keep up with most of their solo projects. And I don't think I've listened to a full album by him before, but I've been pretty happy with the singles that I've heard. So, I decided to give this one a try, and I really liked it. I thought there was a good variety of different styles between the songs, and most of them were pretty catchy. But I do want to talk about Connection. I'm sorry, but the vocals were like really off on this song. It was so weird. I mean, I commend him for not using any pitch correction or anything, but it was definitely pitchy. And it's unfortunate because I do think it's a really good song, but the vocals were just off there for me. But there were other songs that stood out to me while I was listening to this album, and those included Sweat, Windowsill, Tightrope, and River Road. There weren't any songs that I didn't like other than, some of my problems with Connection. And I definitely would listen to this one again, and I'm definitely going to be adding my favorites to my playlist. So, this one was good for me, and I gave this a 7 out of 10. And next is Everyday Life by Coldplay, which was released in 2019. This is in the alt rock, experimental rock genre, and this is also a nominee. This is also a nominee for Album of the Year at the Grammys, and I loved this album. I thought it was a masterpiece. I've never listened to a full Coldplay album, at least as far as I can remember, but I do really like some of their singles, Viva La Vida, Clocks, but I definitely was not expecting to be this blown away by this album. I just thought it was so beautiful. The instrumental tracks are like so beautiful and moving, and there's also a good variety in the album. There were like those beautiful and inspiring songs, there were upbeat songs, there were like more of the classic like earwormy songs with there was also like cute little, sorry, I forgot to mention that there's probably some weird sounds going on because my neighbors are making some noise. So sorry about that, but um, I just wanted to, point that out in case you hear anything weird. But anyways, so there was a lot of variety with all the songs, and but they all fit together so well, and it's been a while since an album has affected me this deeply, especially like a full album. Like there's been songs here and there, but this full album like really affected me deeply. It's just so beautiful and inspiring. I just love it so much. It's so weird. I wasn't expecting to love this at all, really. But yeah, there were no bad songs, but my favorites were Sunrise, Daddy, Orphans, and Echo. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but um, yeah, I loved those ones, and I'm definitely gonna listen to this whole album again. I feel like for this one it might not work very much when you take out the individual songs. Like it definitely works better as a full piece. So I'm definitely going to be listening to all of it. And I gave this a 10 out of 10, which is rare for me. So go Coldplay. And next is Collapsed in Sunbeams by Arlo Parks, which was released in January 29th, 2021. And I'm not really sure what the genre for this is, honestly. So let me know if you know what you would classify this as, but I've seen it labeled as bedroom pop and indie folk, which doesn't seem right to me. I would personally call this like jazz or maybe indie pop or lo-fi, if that's a category. But yeah, this was a random pick for me. I heard a little bit of buzz around her and I liked the cover. So I decided to, give it a try, and I liked it. I think she has a really cool and original sound. I like her voice and her accent. It's soothing to listen to, and I just like the vibe. And I mean, I can definitely see an argument there that most of the songs sound very similar, but it didn't really bug me too much because I just kind of like the whole sound, even if it's repetitive. But my standout songs were Too Cool, Just Go, and Caroline. And because a lot of the songs do sound kind of similar to me anyways, I think my personal listening experience I think I would just be better to listen to the full album again rather than, picking out individual songs. And I would give this a 7 out of 10. And next is Flowers for Vases by Hayley Williams. And this was released February 5th, 2021. And this is a folk or country folk album. And I'm a huge Paramore Hayley Williams fan, so of course I was gonna listen to this album that she surprise dropped, which was like the best gift ever. And I loved this album so much. I'm so glad that she released this. I think this was more of what I was hoping for from her previous solo album that came out last year. Petals for Armor was a little bit out there for me. It was a little weird and kooky, but this one was so good. This one aligned more with my tastes, I think. And so, some of my favorite Paramore songs are the few slow acoustic ones that they have, like The Only Exception or 26. So it was a treat to like have a full album of those kind of songs. And there were no bad songs for me on this album, but I had so many favorites, which included First Thing to Go, Over Those Hills, HYD. I don't know if that's how you would say it, or if you would say, is it, I forget if she says How You Do. Yeah, I don't know if you would call it HYD, and then Key. Oh my god, and KYRH, which again, I don't know if you would pronounce that as Keep You Right Here, but whatever. And then I also really like Just a Lover. So there were just so many beautiful songs on this album, and I'm just really proud of her for, she pretty much made this album by herself. She wrote all the songs, she obviously sings, and she plays all the instruments, which is really cool. She didn't produce it though, but everything else, that's pretty impressive to me. And this album is what the cross stitch is for. It's just, a literal interpretation of flowers for vases. I've been wanting to embroider flowers, so this was my chance to do that. And of course, I'm going to listen to this again. I loved it so much. I'm going to be adding my favorite songs to my playlist. I love it. So this one also got a 10 out of 10, which is surprising because that's really rare for me. But so that is it for albums. And now I want to go into a few other categories that don't really fit in anywhere else. So I have a few kind of like TV specials, I guess you would call them, and a video game that I want to talk about. So first up is I watched the Britney Spears documentary that everyone's been talking about. It's called The New York Times Presents Framing Britney Spears. And this is an episode in the New York Times Presents series. It's season 1, episode 6, which came out February 5th, 2021. And this is a documentary about Britney Spears, and it kind of goes through her career and her hardships in her personal life that have led her to be in this controversial conservatorship. And I decided to watch this just because there was literally so much hype around it, so much buzz. I just had to watch it, and I liked it. I didn't think it was quite as crazy as everyone was saying it was. Maybe it was because I've known about the conservatorship for a while, so it wasn't completely new information to me. I don't really know, but I thought that it was obviously biased on the Free Britney perspective. I feel like they completely went over their perspective without sharing the pro conservatorship perspective at all, which is, it's just important for me to feel like I have a well-informed, well-rounded opinion before, speaking out on these things or whatever. Like, I want to know both sides of the argument, because, obviously there has to be some reason why she was put in it in the first place. But they didn't really, I don't know, I feel like they didn't really talk about that side at all. So, I did enjoy it just as like a documentary on her life and career. As I said, for the Billie Eilish documentary, I'm a sucker for when they like splice in clips of them performing and then put interviews and then other behind the scenes clips. Like, I just really like that kind of thing. So, and I one thing about the documentary too is I do like the conversation that it's raising about sexism in the media, because it was just them showing like the questions that she would be asked, and she would be like such a young age. Like, she was like, I feel like she was like 6 or 7 in some of those clips, and they were already like asking about her boyfriend, if she had a boyfriend, like, just gross. So I'm glad that, it's bringing it, the documentaries. So I'm glad that the documentary is bringing attention to that at least. And I gave this a 7 out of 10. And next I watched High School Musical, the musical, the holiday special, which was released last December on Disney Plus. And this is, I guess, like a concert kind of special where the cast just performs Christmas songs. And I thought this was going to be an actual episode, so I was a little disappointed that it was just, kind of songs. But I mean, I thought it was cute. It was cute to see them all put on their little shows. So yeah, I mean, that one was fine. Yeah, so I mean, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. And then next, I wanted to talk about one video game, Life is Strange 2. The last episode of this, so it's a 5-part kind of series in the video game, and the last episode came out in December 2019. And this is like an episodic story adventure game that follows two brothers that are on the run from the police. And I loved it so much. I think I was hesitant with this one at first because I didn't think it would be able to compare to the first one, which I really love. I absolutely love the first one. I mean, that's probably, this whole series is probably just one of my favorite. Well, it's definitely one of my favorites, but I'm not sure if it might be the favorite. I love them so much. So I mean, I was kind of hesitant because I wasn't sure how it would compare to the first one, but I mean, somehow they did it. And it did take me a while to play through this whole game. One because Life is Strange, like I said earlier, I was kind of hesitant because I don't want it to ruin the first one, and I didn't think it would live up to expectations. But then also, these games are like my favorite games, so I kind of wanted to save it for a rainy day also. So I mean, I don't think I liked this one as much as I liked the first one, but it definitely came pretty close and is, definitely worth the time and money. And yeah, I'm definitely confident that, the next ones in the series are going to be good as well. And they just announced that they're going to be making a third one, so I'm really excited for that. And I mean, one thing that I did have a problem with this game was like some of the racist people they came across. It seemed kind of like over the top caricatures, unrealistic kind of thing. But I mean, in the end, it didn't really bother me because it just allowed for a really powerful story. And it's a topic that's really important and relevant right now. And I mean, also, it's not really Life is Strange's thing to be subtle. They're usually pretty over the top, so it's to be expected. And I loved the references to the first game. And I guess one thing to say is I thought the first episode was a little boring, but it definitely picked up after that. I'm not sure which one would be my favorite. Something, it would either be three, 4, or 5, but I can't choose between those. And just as some criticism for this game, it doesn't really look like the graphics have improved very much since the first game, which they should have. I mean, it probably has been like 5 years or something since the first game, so I feel like that should have improved a little more. And also, there were really long loading times, which were pretty annoying. And I also just think I personally just connect to the first game better because one, it's set in like a boarding school, which is just kind of my thing. I always love that as a setting. And also, I think the first one is better for me just because it's stable. It's like in the same place the whole time, so you really get to know the cast of characters. And because they're on the run in the second game, you don't really get to know people very well because you meet all these different people in different places. And there also just isn't really one big bad like there is in the first game. And yeah, so I mean, if you don't know these games, I think people just love them because the stories are so powerful, and also just because of like the music and the vibes. The music is definitely the most important aspect to me. I love it so much. So I would rate this a 9 out of 10. And so, I mean, that's it for my recap. And now I just want to talk about my cross stitch for a little bit. This took around 3.5 hours. As I said earlier, it's for Hayley Williams' Flower for Vases album. And this is on, I think it's a 5-inch hoop just on some white linen fabric, and I tried to match the colors to the colors on Hayley's album. And I had fun making all these little flowers. And I also just wanted to say that I know for this recap for both parts, part 1 and 2, my cross stitches or embroidery, whatever, they're a little simple, but I feel like I have to start taking a step back with these because some of the other cross stitch things that I was working on, they take too much time. So I want, there's so many things that I want to talk about. I want to get more videos out because there's just so much that I want to talk about, but the cross stitch is kind of holding me back a little bit, even though that's also an important thing that I want to do. But, that's just something I wanted to note. But yeah, so that's it. That's everything. Those were my thoughts on the movies and albums that I watched in January and February 2021. So let me know if you have any thoughts on the movies and albums. If you liked anything, if you hated anything, let me know. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.